All right, so get this. We're diving into something crazy today. Ray Kurzweil's prediction that we'll be immortal by 2030. You heard right. Immortality, like living forever. And we're going to be looking at Kurzweil's immortality prediction examined to see how this could even happen and if we should believe it.
It's actually not as crazy as it sounds. Kurzweil's whole argument is based on longevity escape velocity. What he thinks is that technology is going to be advancing so fast that we're basically adding more time to our lives than is passing by.
So we're like outrunning death. That's a pretty big claim. How does he think we'll actually get to that point?
Kurzweil believes in the three bridges to immortality. It's basically three fields of technology: biotechnology, nanotechnology, and AI, all working together.
Okay, so let's take a look at each of those. First, biotechnology.
Yeah, so think like genetic engineering and stuff. Therapies that can repair damage like at a cellular level and maybe even reverse aging.
So messing with our genes and cells to be stronger against disease and aging. That sounds like something from a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it really does. But we're making some crazy advancements. There are some limitations, though, like the Hayflick limit. Our cells can only divide so many times before they just stop. It's like a built-in expiration date for our bodies.
That's a big problem if we want to live forever.
It is, and it also brings up some interesting philosophical questions, too. Like, even if we could beat the Hayflick limit, would that be living or just existing but longer? It's something to think about.
It really changes how we think about quality of life. Okay, so that's biotechnology. What about nanotechnology? How's that part of this?
This is where it gets really futuristic. Kurzweil thinks we'll have these little robots, nanobots, that'll be in our blood fixing damage at a cellular level, like tiny mechanics keeping our bodies in tip-top shape.
So no more surgeries or pills. We'll just have these nanobots doing everything from the inside.
Exactly. They could clear out arteries, kill cancer cells, even reverse how our cells age. Pretty wild, right?
Sounds amazing, but kind of scary, too.
Yeah.
How far off is this nanobot stuff? Are we talking like decades, centuries?
Well, right now, nanotech is mostly focused on delivering medicine to the right spot. We're far from having nanobots do the things Kurzweil talks about. It's really hard to make something that small and that smart.
So no nanobot upgrades for us anytime soon?
Not quite. But here's the thing. Even if we had these super nanobots, reversing aging isn't just fixing a machine. It's so complex. It involves tons of biological stuff we don't even understand. We'd be messing with the very essence of life.
Makes you wonder if we even know enough to actually beat aging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so biotech and nanotech are in. What about AI? How does that fit into all this?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Kurzweil predicts we'll basically connect our brains to the cloud, create a backup of our consciousness, and make us smarter.
Wait, brain cloud integration. Sounds like we're in the Matrix.
I know, right? But think about how we use cloud storage now. Imagine doing that with our minds. Instant information, perfect memory. We could even back up our thoughts.
So we'd be downloading ourselves to the cloud. Would that even be us anymore?
That's a huge question, isn't it? What happens to who we are if we combine with technology that much?
It's crazy to think about. Which leads to the next question.
Yeah.
Is any of this going to happen? How right are Kurzweil's predictions? Kurzweil's got a pretty interesting track record. Like, depending on who you ask and how you measure it, his predictions are like somewhere between 25% and 86% accurate.
Whoa, that's a big difference. But it's kind of cool how hard it is to judge these long-term predictions, especially with tech. I mean, think about it. A few decades ago, who would have thought we'd have the internet like we do now?
Yeah, true, but predicting tech is almost impossible. But let's say Kurzweil is right. What if we actually are about to figure out how to be immortal? What happens then? What would a world full of immortals even be like?
That's the real question, isn't it? We'd have to rethink everything about how our society works. Like everything we have now, healthcare, economics, social security, it all assumes we're going to die someday. Immortality changes everything.
Yeah, like wouldn't overpopulation get crazy? We already have problems with resources as it is.
Exactly. We'd have to figure out how to handle housing, food, energy, so many things. And then there's the question of, would everyone be able to be immortal?
You mean, would it be another thing only rich people could afford? Making the gap between rich and poor even bigger?
It's a real possibility. Imagine only a few people can live forever, and everyone else just gets old and dies like always. That could cause some serious problems.
That's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah.
But it's something we got to consider. What about work and retirement? If we could live for hundreds of years, would we even need those anymore?
That's a really interesting question. Would we even have retirement if people could work forever? Would normal careers even make sense if you had unlimited time to try different things?
And what would motivate us if we didn't have to worry about time running out? Would we be more ambitious? we're just lazy?
Hard to say, really. Maybe having more time would make us more creative, but maybe we'd lose that sense of urgency, that drive to do things because we don't have forever.
It's wild to think about how immortality would change our values and stuff. Like what would happen to our relationships? Imagine being married to the same person for centuries.
Whoa, that's intense. Would love and commitment even be the same anymore? Or would we need totally new ideas about relationships?
We've talked about a lot. The science behind Kurzweil's predictions, the problems with the technology, and now all these crazy things that could happen to society. Seems like immortality wouldn't just be a scientific thing. It would change everything about being human.
Yeah, for sure. It would change how we think about things just as much as it would change science.
It makes you wonder, is this something we even want? It really makes you think about what being human even means, like life and death, how we see time, our purpose. All of that would be totally different if we were immortal.
It's like someone gave us this box, and inside is the power to change how we exist, but the pieces are really complicated, and we're still figuring out how it all works.
So after all this, Kurzweil's vision, the science, the crazy stuff that could happen to society, what do you think? Immortality by 2030, is that really possible?
Honestly, it's hard to say. Kurzweil's timeline is super ambitious. I do think these technologies have a lot of potential, but 2030 seems kind of soon. Like we're still figuring out basic stuff in all these fields.
Yeah, like we talked about. We're still learning how to even use nanotech for simple medical things. Nanobots fixing our whole bodies from the inside seems way off. And don't even get me started on the brain cloud stuff.
Exactly. Science is just part of it. We also got to think about the ethics, the social stuff, the philosophy. Like, what rules do we need to keep these technologies from being misused? How do we make sure everyone can have access? These questions are just as important as the science itself.
And they're even harder to answer because this is all brand new. There's no example of what a world with immortality would be like. We can guess, but we're basically flying blind.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting. We're not just talking about science. We're talking about changing what it means to be human. And everyone needs to be part of that conversation, not just scientists.
For sure. This is a conversation for philosophers, ethicists, regular people, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a say in what this future looks like.
That's a great point, and it goes back to why we're doing this deep dive. To give you the info you need to decide for yourself. We've looked at the possibility of immortality, but it's up to you to decide what you believe and how you feel about this future.
So as we wrap up our look at Kurzweil's prediction, I want to leave you with this. Imagine a world where death isn't a guarantee anymore. How would that change your values, your goals, how you see being alive? Maybe there's no right answer. But it's worth thinking about as we move into this crazy future of science and tech.
It makes us think about the big questions and about what our choices today mean for tomorrow.
And with that, we'll let you keep exploring the possibilities of the future.